And we continue now with our two-part series with Sue Hestor, who is a San Francisco land use attorney who's been at the forefront of the what's been called the anti-growth or anti-development movement. And where we left off, Sue, is we were talking about how this whole huge explosion of residential towers and all this development that's occurring in San Francisco could occur on your watch. Now, I'm going to suggest something. No, I'm not saying this is, you can't do it alone. I understand. I look at the group of the board of supervisors who came in the anti-Brown revolt, the progressive movement. I tend to believe that because of the extractions they're getting, or exactions they're getting out of developers, that is the $15 a square foot, that they're actually encourage these towers because this is the only way to build affordable housing.
No. No. First of all, what comes out of inclusionary housing is not affordable housing. It's 100% of median housing. The true affordable housing need comes through buildings that are constructed by bond measures, which our people supported.
And are defeated.
No, we passed it. We
had
the
last one.
Well, not the last one, but the first one we passed.
Yes, but that was only what, $100 million?
It was a lot of money, and people put together the nonprofit sector, which is a viable section for developing housing in San Francisco.
And they've been successful.
The money comes from everywhere. I'm not an affordable housing developer, but I work with them, and that is a main focus of people, is actually building affordable housing. The second one is, when we got a new board of supervisors, we had an area that had enormous stresses that needed to be rezoned, all the industrial areas. And so that is where people's energies have been spent since 2000.
I do not want to, look, my question and why I wanted to have you on the program is, as I go down, and I was fortunate to go to the top of that one Rincon Hill for the program, and when you get up there, that's when you understand how much development's going on. When you look down from that one Rincon Hill down to Mission Bay, the UC campus is so small. There is so much land. Do you feel frustrated that all this happened?
No.
Do you feel abandoned?
I feel abandoned because the Chronicle doesn't cover it, and the Examiner basically doesn't exist. One of the things that was a big factor in this is there used to be newspaper coverage. There used to be week after week an article in the Chronicle, an article in the Examiner, and occasionally in the Chronicle. Now we have nothing. We have no beat reporter that covers land use. We have John King, who writes think pieces, which isn't the same. He waits until they're all done and analyzes them. And so there is no citizen knowledge of what's happening.
But what happened to the powerful organization you had? I know Calvin Welch still works with you, but
he wasn't ever part of SFRG.
Okay. SFRG being San Franciscans for Reasonable Growth.
Right. We lasted from 1978 until about 1988. It's a long time for a volunteer organization.
Do you think people got burned out?
Oh yeah, it was an enormous amount of work dealing with downtown, and I still deal with downtown high-rises that are housing, but it's very hard. There isn't the awareness in the public because partly there's no news coverage of it, and maybe I should be faulted for not going, hey folks, there's really an issue.
But you're doing that now.
I'm doing that now, and what I want to tell when the people watch this show is what you see is one Rincon Center. There's a twin to that that's about to break ground this year, and there are going to be 4 buildings on the next block to the north on Fremont Street, and there's 4 buildings approved on Folsom Street, one of which is built.
But you know,
But wait a minute, but the impact is, let me tell you the visual, no one is going to be able to see the Bay Bridge from the middle of the city. And no one crossing the Bay Bridge is going to be able to see the hills. Every one of those buildings is taller than the top of the Bay Bridge Tower.
It was Supervisor Daley who, in his district, basically, there will be $100 million available for, quote, affordable housing. Now, let's not get into that. We're going to get to that in a moment. But the fact is, that $100 million, that is what the developer's paying on that project, is almost equal to the bond that you got passed by the voters.
I'm not Chris Daley. He's not me. I disagree with the deal he cut.
But it's affordable housing from one definition, and we don't want to lose the viewers with that because we're going to be talking about that in a moment. The fact is, those huge high-rises are financing the kind of HUD money that is no longer available for nonprofits to use to build affordable housing.
But it's not the solution to the housing problem in
Agreed.
San Francisco.
But what now we're going to go to where I think you've drawn the line in the sand, and that is the Eastern Neighborhood Study. The Eastern Neighborhoods being, again, if you could define them for us.
Oh, that's south of Market, Potrero Hill Dog Patch, Mission District, Showplace Square.
Okay. Tell me if I'm wrong, that you have decided you're going to put your foot down on those neighborhoods in terms of what the planning department, am I right?
Yep. It's the entire ballgame. Because if we do not come out of these areas with jobs that are left for working class people, because there's still a lot of jobs in this area, and housing that's appropriate housing for the people who work in the city and live in the city now, there's no place for them to go.
Okay, and we have just a few minutes, but here's where I want to go into this. What do you say to those builders who say, we can't build below medium income housing that is around people earning, say, $45,000 a year, $50,000 a year. That's below median income. Where's the money going to come to? If you were successful to zone that with only 3% new housing in that area and leave everything else as it is, where do the builders come from who will build the kind of housing you want?
Part of it is we need to reserve some of the land for affordable housing projects.
But who will build the projects once they're set aside?
If necessary, it'll be the affordable housing community, and hopefully people will also build some housing that is for people that make 150% of median. There is a very vibrant affordable housing community that builds housing in San Francisco. The problem is, as land keeps being eaten up, there's less and less available to build affordable housing. One of the things that's very important is the Board of Supervisors in the last inclusionary zoning legislation has a finding that above 120 feet, the cost of construction is such that housing becomes less affordable, and so they have a reduced requirement for inclusionary housing. You build a 150-foot building, your affordability comes down to 12%. Under 120, it's 15%. That doesn't make any sense to most people, that the taller you go, the less affordable housing you're responsible to build. But the cost of construction is so high that we should be building over 120 feet, because above that, the cost means the price goes up.
Here's the thing. The planning department, in response to your efforts, went through a comprehensive study, and I think it's under review now by the public. I'm not sure what the process is, but as I understand it, there were 3 options for this huge area you just described. It would be 30% would be allowed to be redeveloped or rezoned or whatever, down to 3% being the low end, 30% being the high end.
I'm not sure of those numbers, but there was alternatives A, B, and C.
A, B, and C. But the point is, it's the matter of how much of the existing parcels there could be developed
as housing
freely, right, for the market, whatever the market wants to build.
Well, we are about to see what happens, because the environmental impact report is in circulation. The deadline is about now. There is supposed to be this month, February, where'd that come from? In September, they're supposed to release the plan. They're supposed to release every one of the area plans and the zoning.
In this area we're talking about, the eastern neighborhoods.
In these areas, yes.
And do you know where they're headed?
I think they're struggling with it. The planning department has to figure out how to keep jobs in the city, and that is a big issue.
The jobs that are there now?
The jobs that are there now.
About 9,000 jobs there now.
Well, they support, it's the food service industry. It's
distribution.
If you have a PDR. I have an old Victorian house. I have a flat in an old Victorian house. You need to have repairs done. You need certain things. There is a lot of custom work that's done in this city for the people that live here. That's fabrication. It's food processing.
Repair.
And it's the convention industry. The convention industry needs a lot of services, and they come out of these neighborhoods.
When you go down there, you can just take any block. There's lamps, there's furniture, there's all the things people need. I agree with that. So what's going to be the product out of this? Will it be that, what does the Planning Commission produce that has an impact on the neighborhood?
They will do 2 things. They will adopt an area plan, which is a vision statement for the area. It tells you what the goals are, and they will say, okay, here's the zoning. And then there was also the 3rd thing is height limits. But the planning department emphasis over the long term is what are they going to allow in the zoning, and that's the rules. That's where they say, in this area you can't build this, you can build this. These are the requirements. And the last thing that
Parcel
they're
by
going to do,
parcel?
parcel by there will be rules for
No, every parcel.
No, every parcel will have rules on it. It'll be part
based
of
on the plan.
Yeah, it'll be like 5 blocks, and they'll have the zoning for it.
And who will make the final decision on
Board
this?
of Supervisors.
Okay. So, and when do you think that will be done?
At this point, the Planning Commission's position is that it'll be out of the Planning Commission next spring. They said it'll be at the Commission in January. I think that means next spring, and then it goes to the Board of Supervisors.
Now, in any case, there's always variances, right? There's always people can come in for a conditional use permit. Or
There's always developers and their lobbyists, yes.
But I mean, I spent 3 years on the Waterfront Advisory Committee, and I see that all the work we did on all the parcels, we went from parcel to parcel, seawall to seawall, it can be changed.
Okay, that is why the battle of the zoning is to see what kind of exceptions are going to be allowed. Because you're right, the rule is we have rules and then there's 75 ways to get out of them.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And
you go through the process.
And it's very hard because the people from the community who push for a set of rules and say you shouldn't have all of these exceptions are countered by the developers and their lawyers and their lobbyists swarming, and they say, no, we want to have 16 ways to
what
get out
do you
of this.
want in this plan?
What I want is I want the focus to be put on as much housing as possible that is affordable to people who live in the city, and that is definitely low-income housing, but also paying attention to people who make 150% to 200% of median.
That sounds pretty market.
That sounds, no, it's not. Market rate housing is a lot higher than that right now. Market rate housing is $800,000 condos. You have to make $200,000.
But two people working together. But the point is that do you mean that you would favor certain parcels having demolished property in order to build housing on them?
No, it depends on what you're demolishing.
Well, I'm saying anything.
If you're demolishing places that are producing jobs, no. If they're good jobs, the jobs that we have in the eastern neighborhoods are not minimum wage jobs. They're good jobs. They tend to be trades. They tend to be unionized. They have ability to support families on them. The biggest travesty that we have right now is that the housing that we are building is housing for people who work in Silicon Valley, because they make really good money in Silicon Valley, and the housing that should be built is for people who work here. And we're telling people who work here, people who work in the hotels, the hospitality industry, you go to Tracy. And it's environmentally dysfunctional.
And that is what you've been fighting for.
Yep.
Thank you for being here for these 2 programs.
You're very welcome.
And we'll see what happens in the eastern neighborhood.
It's a long process.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.